Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
I'm Carolee McGrath. I'll tell you about the cost and the challenges that this harsh winter weather has created for the diocese.
I'm Steve Kiltonic here in Springfield, where on Ash Wednesday, a parish remembered the 70th anniversary of the atomic bombing on Nagasaki.
And we'll introduce you to one of the keynote speakers for the upcoming Catholic Men's Conference. These stories and more are just ahead on this edition of Reel to Reel.
Here is your Reel to Reel host, Sharon Roulier.
Hello and welcome to Reel to Reel. Well, as we're preparing this week's show, weather forecasters are calling for yet another round of winter weather. Aside from the general frustration and winter blues this season's storms, many falling on weekends, have had serious impact on parishes and their finances. Carolee McGrath has our story.
On yet another cold winter day, the faithful file into St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish on King Street in Northampton for the Ash Wednesday service. Getting to church this winter has been a challenge for many, with storm after storm pounding New England. But the cost to heat the church and clear the snow for weekend masses has been enormous.
Our costs are probably in those areas are probably up somewhere around 20 to 25%. Plus we've had, those are costs. On the other side, of course, we've been impacted by 5 weekends of snow in terms of collections.
Father John Connors, the pastor of St. Elizabeth's, says on those 5 weekends of heavy snow, the attendance was clearly down, causing the collections to be down by $15,000 to $20,000. The collections pay for things that many of us don't think about, keeping the lights and the heat on and hauling away the snow. Because 5 parishes merged into one in Northampton, Father Connors has a lot of property to take care of, including St. Elizabeth's on King Street, Blessed Sacrament on Elm, and Annunciation in Florence. What do you have to maintain?
Well, 11 buildings and a cemetery, which means we have to plow snow for parking lots and sidewalks, steps and such, as well as the cemetery and the roads leading through the cemetery.
The harsh winter weather has also made it difficult for Catholic Charities, which helps 350 families with emergency fuel assistance. Catherine Buckley Bronner is the head of Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Springfield.
Fortunately for us, and that's for the goodness of the Catholic parishioners of the Diocese of Springfield, we have not had to turn anyone away yet. That's by the grace of God and the grace of the generosity of people. However, we struggle because we are also aware of how much we do have to spend, and we know that we are going through that a whole lot more quickly than we had anticipated.
And while all of this snow and these bitterly cold temperatures are causing major headaches in our area, Boston is really hurting, with 8 feet of snow recorded to date. Father Robert Reed is the president of Catholic TV Network based in Watertown. You can see how high the snow is piled on the streets around their offices. He says the daily Mass has been a critical service for Catholics.
Thank God we have the TV Mass, because it's really been a help, particularly one weekend where the weather was just terrible on a Sunday morning, because when all else fails, we can watch the TV Mass. But it's been tough, on parishes financially. It's been tough on people just trying to keep programs going and keep the work of the parish alive. It's been tough on parochial schools and public schools alike because they've missed so many days.
Bonnie Rogers, the director of marketing and programming for Catholic TV, says producing the Mass has been a top priority of the network, even though it hasn't been easy.
For employees, we have some employees who live in the city, which is really difficult to get out of if your car is snowed in, and of course there were problems with the T. So that made things a challenge. So it made life interesting, the snow, that's for sure. But we wanted to make sure that we brought the Mass into everybody's homes.
The Diocese of Springfield has for 57 years televised Sunday Mass on the Chalice of Salvation, hosted by Brother Terry Scanlon. The need is even greater this winter. And with Catholics now observing Lent, the 40 days of preparation, penance, and fasting, which leads up to Easter, many are offering up this cold and all of the problems it brings.
I think we just need forbearance to get through the winter. I'll pray for the elderly and the homebound and hope for a quick entry of spring.
Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
And in another related weather issue, diocesan officials have canceled the annual rite of election that was scheduled for tomorrow, February 22nd, at St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield. Instead, Bishop Rosansky will greet those entering the Catholic faith in a special event that's being planned for April. More information and an invitation will be sent out to those involved as soon as plans are firmed up. Having to leave home in a hurry is traumatic for anybody, but especially for children who are going to foster care, shelters, or safe houses. A local organization, a new recipient of the annual Catholic Appeal Funds, has found a way to make this a bit easier for those little ones. Rebecca Drake has the story.
Tamara Blake had watched this scene many times.
I was working at a safe home for children, and I had seen children depart for so many years with their things in a trash bag into foster care, domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters.
But on one day in September of 2010, something changed.
I was watching another little one get packed up with his things being thrown into a trash bag, and then I remembered that I had a piece of luggage in my car that I was going to donate.
An educational psychologist, Tamara took note of the child's reaction when she gave him the suitcase.
His posture improved, a huge smile came over his face, and you could just tell that immediately he had a sense of pride in himself and his belongings. And that's really what the mission of Angels Take Flight is, to restore that sense of dignity and pride in children.
This year, for the first time, Angels Take Flight, the organization that Tamara founded, will receive funds from the Springfield Diocese's annual Catholic Appeal. Funds that can help change the lives of children in crisis.
To have something that they can own and that's theirs, it restores that sense of dignity and pride and esteem in themselves and in their belongings.
And the individuals and organizations that support Angels Take Flight say they get something too.
We all have so much, and just to help others feels so great because we don't know how much we have until you see others not have enough.
At this recent fundraiser, a 1980s Zumba bash at Six Flags in Agawam, participants of all ages experienced the joy of selfless giving, says Angels Take Flight board member Melinda Moreno.
Just knowing that you're giving to someone else without expecting anything back is a big, warm feeling. You're doing something good for children who are in situations that are unable to advocate for themselves.
Some donors also have a personal motivation to help these children.
I think it's a phenomenal program. I personally have a couple relatives that are dealing with the foster care situation, and very young children are involved in this.
And for all of the support received, from dollars to dancing, from luggage to love and prayers, Angels Take Flight is grateful.
When I say donors and supporters, I don't just mean people who donate money. I don't just mean people who donate luggage. I mean anyone who's ever welcomed us to give an interview or written an article for us or introduced us to people that could do something on a larger scale.
Tamara also is grateful for the one she believes is ultimately responsible for creating and sustaining Angels Take Flight.
What I do know is that God put it on my heart for a reason, and whenever God puts something on my heart, I have full faith in it. I have unwavering faith that He will take care of not only me, but our community.
With faith in God and the generosity of the community, Angels Take Flight will continue to bring hope and dignity to young lives. For Reel to Reel, I'm Rebecca Drake.
What a wonderful way to bring God's love to children in need. For more information on Angels Take Flight, you can log on to our news and information website at iobserve.org. And remember, Angels Take Flight is one of 40 recipients of the annual Catholic Appeal funding. And on a sad note, we remember a Southwick woman who was very generous with her time and talents over the years. Catholic Communications learned that Norma Uris, a Southwick parishioner profiled by Rebecca Drake last September, passed away on February 12th. She would have celebrated her 97th birthday tomorrow. Norma Uris inspired all who knew her with her great faith, as well as her love for music, worship, and fun. She will be missed, but her legacy of joy will surely endure in the hearts of her family members and fellow parishioners at Our Lady of the Lake Parish in Southwick. And still to come on Reel to Reel, meet Father Robert Reed, an upcoming speaker for the Catholic Men's Conference. And Steve Kiltonick will have the history behind these unique bowls. These stories and more are still to come on this edition of Reel to Reel.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Passion's Brother Terrence Scanlon, your Chalice host, inviting you to take time out of your busy days and join us Sunday morning at 10. This week we welcome Father Gary Daly, chaplain at the Newman Catholic Center at UMass Amherst, will celebrate the first Sunday of Lent. The Chalice of Salvation, your spiritual connection, Sunday morning at 10, right here on 22 News.
It is a journey that will stay with you a lifetime. Join Father Gary Daly, Father Matthew Alkenbright, and me, Peggy Weber, for a special pilgrimage to Ireland from August 7th to the 18th. Every day will include Mass and adventure. The trip is sponsored by Catholic Communications and organized through John Paul Pilgrimages and Tours. This special trip to the Emerald Isle will include a ride on a jaunting cart through Killarney National Park, a visit to the Aran Islands, the Cliffs of Moher, and the Connemara region. Pilgrims will attend a private Mass at Kylemore Abbey, home of Ireland's Benedictine nuns. The group also will journey to the Marian Shrine at Knock for a private Mass and prayer. They will travel to the northernmost point of Ireland, Mallinhead, and then journey into Northern Ireland to see the walled city of Derry and the Giant's Causeway. A tour of the Bushmills Distillery is included in the day. Also on the itinerary is a trip to Armagh and the Boyne Valley. And pilgrims will see the ecclesiastical settlement of St. Kevin's in Wicklow, and then tour Dublin. A special information night will be held Wednesday, March 4th, in the Holy Spirit Chapel of St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield at 6 p.m. I will even bake my Aunt Helen's Irish soda bread for the occasion. For more information and registration, call Stacy DeByrne at 413-452-0670 or log on to johnpaultours.com/Springfield. This is gonna be fun.
In just 2 weeks, on March 7th, the Catholic Men's Conference will be held at Bellamy School in Chicopee and feature 4 wonderful speakers. Among the 4 is Father Robert Reed, president of Catholic TV in the Archdiocese of Boston and a good friend of this program. Father Reed is a priest who uses the cutting edge of technology to evangelize. He's also a man of deep faith and devotion to the saints and spirituality. Peggy Weber spent the day at Catholic TV in Watertown this past week and introduces us now to Father Robert Reed.
Father Robert Reed's vocation, he says, began in the back of his first grade classroom. It was there he heard a compelling story that planted some very strong seeds.
And I was in the first grade classroom with Sister Lydia, and she told us this story. It took like 90 seconds to tell, of St. Tarcisius and how he had courageously carried the Holy Eucharist during a terrible time in the church, in the early days of the church, and he was overtaken by a mob and killed. He was martyred, and it just dawned on me that even as a kid, what a great gift that is for a young person to love Jesus so much that he would give his life.
In a sense, Father Reed realized at a very young age that anyone, no matter their age or education, can make a difference in the world and spread the wonderful messages of the Catholic faith. In his recent book, Renewed, 10 Ways to Rediscover the Saints, Embrace Your Gifts, and Revive Your Catholic Faith, he challenges everyone to get involved. Instead of wringing one's hand and wondering, what is the church going to do? He suggests what everyone can do.
It's everyone's job to spread the faith. And, we're inspired by the saints and the greats that have gone before us, but we also can be very, very much inspired by one another.
And in the words of St. Catherine of Siena, that all the way to heaven is heaven, Father Reed has spent most of his life in heavenly pursuits. He attended St. John Prep in Brighton for high school and college, and then studied at the North American College in Rome. He also holds a master's degree in television management from Boston University's College of Communications. He has served as a pastor, and since 2005, he has been the head of the Catholic TV network, which is available in over 13 million homes and has a website with a 24-hour live stream and more than 3,000 television episodes available for viewing on demand and embedding via CatholicTV.com. Sound technical? Well, Father Reed loves it all and makes it sound easy.
Well, I'm a tinkerer. I remember getting in trouble at home for taking apart a cuckoo clock that my sister had brought home from Germany, trying to figure out how it works, and then of course I couldn't put it back together. But I've always been a tinkerer, and I love new inventions and technology, but more than that, I love to see how we can use them to bring the message of Jesus Christ, the gospel message, to give it deeper penetration.
Since the fall, Father Reed has been asked to wear a few more hats in the Archdiocese of Boston. He was named interim president and CEO of iCatholic Media, and oversees and coordinates Catholic TV, the Pilot, Pilot New Media, Pilot Bulletins and Printing, and the Good Catholic Life radio program. Father Reed shows his love for communications and his hope for the future of the church in many ways, but most especially when he is the MC of the kids' game show, Wow!
Well, we have a lot of shows that we produce here at Catholic TV, but the one that's probably nearest and dearest to my heart is Wow, the Catholic TV Challenge. I always loved game shows, and so having a game show that we produce regularly here at Catholic TV is a way for us to touch young people's lives, families' lives, Catholic schools and religious education programs and parishes.
Wow shows the range of Father Reed's work. He does many things, many things. He is perhaps most familiar to this area when he and Jay Fadden host the half-hour show, This is the Day, on Tuesday and Friday mornings at 10:30 a.m. The viewership there is incredibly loyal and personal.
Here in the set for This is the Day, our live morning show, we call it the Catholic TV living room, affectionately. A very important piece of furniture is the prayer box. And so here in the living room, in that box, when people send in prayer intentions, we put them all in that box, and then we ask all of our viewers who watch the show and who are a part of the Catholic TV family to pray for all those needs of their fellow on-air parishioners.
From apps to shows to tablets to who knows what is next, Father Reed is ready and excited about the church's future.
I'm a very hopeful person, and I know that the church is going to have its struggles as it always has for the last 2 millennia. But at the same time, my hope is in Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is at the center of the church.
Father Reed has traveled the world and is directing Catholic TV into the 21st century. At heart, though, he is still the first-grade boy who heard the call to carry Christ and bring him to others. For Reel to Reel, I'm Peggy Weber.
And Father Reed will be joined at the conference by Bishop William Callahan of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and several other inspirational speakers. And joining me now is Father Jonathan Reardon, Director of the Men's Conference for the Diocese of Springfield, to tell us more about what's expected to be a very inspirational day coming up in just a few weeks. Thanks for joining us today, Father Reardon.
Thank you for having me, Sharon. Pleasure to be here.
So we're coming up on the 13th Annual Catholic Men's Conference on March 7th, just 2 weeks from now. Quite an accomplishment. Can you tell folks what they can expect this year?
Much of the same as always from every year: adoration, confession, time for prayer and fellowship, and of course we have our great speakers. Father Bob Reed coming from Catholic TV, Bishop Callahan, my former spiritual director from the seminary, will be with us to inspire and uplift the men of our diocese and the surrounding area. And besides him, we have Greg Wasinski from Let Me Be Ministries, a new men's ministry that he has launched, as well as Ray McKenna from Catholic Athletes for Christ, who is the CEO for that organization, which is how I found Antonio from a few years ago.
Why do you think it's so important for men to carve out time in their busy lives to attend a day like this?
It's important because we have to put something into our faith. We need to learn. We need to put something in. The disciplines are helpful to us so that we can truly live the faith. I say that to the students at the Newman Center all the time. You put into the faith, you get you get something out of it. So you have to put something into it. And the Men's Conference offers the tools that we need to put something into the faith so that when you go home, you have what you need to truly live it from day to day.
All right, Father Jonathan Reardon, Director of the Men's Conference, thanks for joining us today, and good luck with your day.
Thanks very much, Sharon. Appreciate it.
And again, if you would like more information on the Men's Conference, you can find a link at our website at iobserve.org. This week, Christians around the world began the Lenten journey with the commemoration of Ash Wednesday. On Ash Wednesday at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Springfield, ashes were distributed as usual to mark the beginning of this holy season and to remember Christ's suffering and death on the cross. But this year, the day also served as a way for parishioners to remember another somber and tragic event, the dropping of the atomic bomb on Nagasaki during World War II. Steve Kiltonick has our story.
In August 1945, while the United States was still at war with Japan, President Harry S. Truman authorized the use of atomic bombs on a civilian population. The first was dropped August 6th on the city of Hiroshima. The second occurred 3 days later on the port city of Nagasaki. Over 90,000 lives were lost instantly at Hiroshima, and at least 39,000 died at Nagasaki, which at that time had the largest percentage of Catholics in Japan. The Catholic Church was one of the few structures left standing. The bombs were used to hasten the end of the war and to avoid what was expected to be a full-scale invasion of Japan, where thousands of Americans would have likely died. Others claimed the bombs weren't necessary, that the Japanese were ready to surrender. Historians will continue to debate the opposing viewpoints for generations. At Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish, Father Robert White says Catholics have had a presence in Nagasaki for centuries. The first missionaries to the Far East were the Jesuits, who arrived in Japan in 1549.
St. Francis Xavier landed in Japan quite near Nagasaki, and he had several companions with him, and they began to preach and attract converts to Christianity.
St. Francis stayed only a short time, leaving to continue his missionary work in China. It was Father Villela who took over the mission in Japan.
He was the one who really developed Christianity in Japan at that time, so that within about 10 or 15 years, the population of Nagasaki, as I recall, was about 25 or 26,000 people, and the majority of them were Christian, were Catholic.
Nagasaki became known as the Rome of Japan, as 130,000 were converted during the ensuing 30 years. But Catholics became the scapegoats for other national problems, and were later persecuted, tortured, and killed for their beliefs. While many Catholics were forced to worship in secret, Christianity was never fully stamped out. By the mid-19th century, Japanese Catholics were allowed to rejoin the church. At the time of the Second World War, Nagasaki was populated by a thriving Catholic community. Father White wanted to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing in a special way.
We're losing so many of the veterans of World War II, so many millions and millions of those men and women who really saved democracy for the world are dying off. Many of the fathers and mothers of my parishioners served in the military in World War II, and so I wanted to remember them and commemorate them. I wanted to connect us with the Catholic community there that also suffered terribly during World War II. And I thought, well, Ash Wednesday and Lent is a time when we begin to focus on our Lord's own passion and suffering. So I thought it was a good reminder that war is such a terrible experience for people. It's so devastating for everyone.
As it turns out, Father White knows someone who lives in Japan, a former parishioner named Bill Fagoni. Fagoni is an associate professor in English at Kendai University in Osaka, where he lives with his wife and son. Father White asked Fagoni if he could find something appropriate in which to distribute ashes. Fagoni chose 3 porcelain bowls called arita or imari-ware, which were manufactured by a company called Fukagawa Seiji. They have been producing fine porcelain since the 17th century and became famous when it won the gold prize in 1900 at the International Exposition in Paris. The 3 bowls together symbolize the Japanese suffering during the war. One bowl features cranes and is finished in the trademark Fukagawa blue, an almost translucent white.
The crane, of course, is for the Japanese a symbol of fidelity, because in their tradition, a crane lives 1,000 years and mates only once. And so for them, it's a sign of fidelity and faithfulness. And what a beautiful way to think about that Christian community that went through so many ups and downs of persecution and the people of war, that they remain faithful to the church.
Another bowl shows golden cherry blossoms, the national flower of Japan, on a vermilion background.
Cherry blossoms are, of course, a sign of new life, and that's the national flower of Japan. And also, brings us to the idea of springtime and Easter.
The third bowl is formed in the shape of a pale chrysanthemum, which is a national symbol and seal of the imperial family.
The green one, of course, the symbol of hope, color of hope, that we look forward to the new life of Christ.
Sister Betty Matuzik is the parish's pastoral assistant.
Well, year after year, people receive ashes as a personal, sacred symbol of mortality and commitment to the season of Lent and the practice of life in the gospel. And I think this dimension on the 70th anniversary brings us closer and closer to that reality, that it broadens what we do in an individualistic way and brings home a sense of the whole world, a sense of our Catholic world to our Catholic practice.
Father White believes the bowls will resonate with parishioners because Italian Americans here have always had a strong devotion to the cross and the Passion of Christ.
These are going to be used in the parish for every Ash Wednesday, I hope, at least as long as I'm here. And I hope beyond that, I think they should become part of the tradition here.
For Reel to Reel, I'm Steve Kiltonick.
The bowls will serve as a constant reminder for parishioners of this historic event, expanding a personal ritual into a global context. And for this week, that's our show. Remember, you can stay informed on all of the latest happenings by logging on to our news and information website, iobserve.org. There you will get news on the Catholic Church, locally and from across the globe. That's iobserve.org. And don't forget to also friend us on Facebook. We are at Catholic Communications. And also, Holyoke Catholic High School is raising the lights for its spring musical, Curtain Call, which will be showing next weekend, February 28th and March 1st at 7 p.m. in Rutenberg Hall, 1 Ames Hill Drive in Springfield. That's the old McDuffie campus. Tickets are $14 for adults and $12 for students and senior citizens. And for more information, you can find a link on our website at iobserve.org. And join me again next week for another edition of Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. Have a good week.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.